Okay, good evening. I'd like to call to order the June 3rd meeting of the San Francisco Airport Community Roundtable at 7:03 p.m. We are meeting via teleconference pursuant to the shelter-in-place order issued by the San Mateo County Health Officer, the Governor's Office, and the CDC's social distancing guidelines, which discourage large public gatherings. We're meeting via Zoom. Joining us today to help staff this meeting are Angela Montes from the Roundtable Administrative Assistant, Linda Wolin, Senior Legislative Aide to Supervisor Dave Pine, and Acting Roundtable Coordinator, Justin Cook, Technical Consultant from HMMH, and Kathleen Wenworth, Senior Advisor to Congresswoman Jackie Speier. We also have Birkenug and other staff from the Airport Noise Abatement Office. At this point, staff will explain how the public can participate in tonight's meeting. So that's to you, Linda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comments. During the general public comment period, and for each item on the regular agenda, Ms. Montes will ask those members of the public who wish to comment to click the raise hand feature to speak on that agenda item. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. When you hear your name called, Ms. Montes will prompt you to unmute your microphone and inform you that you may begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes and there will be a timer. Please note that members of the public must wait for Ms. Montes' prompt in connection with each agenda item before using the raise hand function. For example, you cannot raise your hand at the beginning of the meeting for an agenda item that is later in the meeting. Written comments that were submitted in advance of this meeting by the deadline will be read by Ms. Montes during discussion of the appropriate agenda item. Thank you.
And Ms. Wolin, do we have a quorum?
I will call the roll to determine. City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors. By the way, please say present or here when I call your jurisdiction. City and
unmute.
City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office. City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission.
Ivar Satiro.
Thank you. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Pine will be joining us in about 10 minutes. CCAG Airport Land Use Commission. Town of Atherton.
Elizabeth Lewis.
Thank you. City of Belmont.
Davina Hurd, present.
Thank you. City of Brisbane.
Terry O'Connell, present.
Thank you. City of Burlingame, Chairman Ortiz.
Chairman Ortiz, present.
City of Daly City. I know Councilwoman DiGiovanni is on the phone, but maybe Ms. Montes, can you unmute her so she can acknowledge herself?
Present, Pamela DiGiovanni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City of Foster City. City of Half Moon Bay. Town of Hillsborough.
Al Royce, present.
Thank you. City of Menlo Park.
Cecilia Taylor, present.
Thank you. City of Millbrae.
Ann Schneider, present.
Thank you. City of Pacifica.
Mike O'Neill, present.
Town of Portola Valley.
Ann Weingart, present.
Thank you. City of Redwood City.
Janet Borgens, present.
Thank you. City of San Bruno. City of San Mateo. City of South San Francisco.
Mark Adiego for South City.
And Town of Woodside.
Tom Livermore, present.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum and then some. Thank you very much.
Very good. That's wonderful. So next on the agenda is our public comment. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Roundtable members cannot discuss or take action on any matter discussed in this item, so we will listen politely and we will try to agendize it if there's a need to do so. With that, Ms. Walton, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak?
Prior to that, sir, I'm sorry, I see that Councilman Hindi has arrived, so I'll just call his roll again. City of Foster City, you can unmute yourself.
Present.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, that's perfectly fine.
And thank you, Chair. We actually did get a written comment for this item for consent items. I will go ahead and read the item for Rebecca Ward, Palo Alto.
Wait, I'm sorry. So is this for public comment or for the consent items?
Since when you approve the agenda, you'll be approving the consent item, we might read this one now in case you want to pull it for discussion.
Perfect. Let's do that then.
Thank you. So for the February 5, 2020 minutes, item 7, which also relate to item 14, formal coordination with other Bay Area Roundtable status, the minutes omit the commitment made by Chairman Ortiz to add an agenda item to a future meeting to discuss adding Palo Alto as a member at video 1 hour, 43 minutes. Tom Livermore from the town of Woodside also suggested it be added to a future agenda due to the impact of arrivals that make their left-hand turn over the area of Palo Alto. Elizabeth Lewis, former chairperson, stated she was and would be very much in support of adding Palo Alto. I request the roundtable minutes reflect the commitment to add the agenda item, including the support of roundtable members for doing so. I ask that the next roundtable agenda include adding Palo Alto as a member. And that was the only written comment we received. We will now turn to spoken comments. You may, if you're on the phone, you may press *9 to raise your hand, and we will call your name. So Mark, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking. You will have 2 minutes and you will be notified when your time ends. Mark, you may begin speaking. You need to accept the request to unmute your.
I just accepted it.
Awesome, thank you.
Mark Scholl, Palo Alto. I would like to re-mention the significant use of air brakes over Los Altos Hills on Surfer for Airbus 319, 320 type aircraft, even now that airspace is uncrowded. This is not the same air brake issue over Monterey that was called out on Surfer 2 and was attributed to pirates being surprised by the descent via command at that location. This problem began with the new Surfer 3, specifically over Los Altos near Waypoint Eddy, when the FAA moved the termination of Surfer Star from Menlo to Eddy. It is noted in the full PBN working group meeting minutes, and I believe Glenn Morris of United would back me up on this. This is a solvable problem, and the Roundtable is the only body that has the resources and contacts to address it. Also, we need to avoid it being replicated in the BSR if it ended up replacing Surfer. Second, both FAA graphics presented to the SCSC and Stanford monographics show clearly that the track on 060 command at the Woodside VOR in the new Roundtable requested Pirate Star has not only created a new concentrated rail between the VOR and the intersection of Page Mill and El Camino in Palo Alto, but the turn back to the airport is very sharp there, which is causing additional high-pitched shrieks. From the sounds, it appears these heavy aircraft are using spoilers and not just the quieter Arians, I can't even say the word, to both turn and descend quickly at this location. It's a piercing noise. When the FAA rolls out new procedures or modifications to procedures, it always notes that these will be refined. I'm asking for a mechanism to investigate and potentially address these two issues. These aircraft are all SFO bound. Between the FAA and chief pilots who are members of the Roundtable, there should be a way to address these significant but fixable issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comments?
Yes, we do. Just hang on a sec.
Okay, thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Ms. Montes, do you need me to assist?
I'm so sorry about that. Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, Jennifer.
Yes, we hear you.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to find out, I thought that there were members of the FAA present at the meeting, and I didn't hear their names introduced. If they are at the meeting, that would be great to know. My written comments didn't make the deadline, but I wanted to mention what they were about. My comments were about the recent FAA report to Congress about alternative metrics, about DNL and alternative metrics, and also the City of Palo Alto's request for permanent noise monitoring. I had those two documents for the record for today, and also 3 questions about whether the Sfo Roundtable is involved in the decision for the permanent noise monitors, if you're able to share with the public how that's moving along. Is it a joint decision with the airport? The letter from Palo Alto was addressed to Mr. Sartero at Sfo. And the other question was to request whether it's permanent or noise monitoring just that is not permanent, or with the portables, to do some measurements in the next few months, because one of the interesting things in the FAA's report is about how difficult it is to sometimes get ambient community noise levels, and that's really important for metrics. And this is an ideal time to do that when traffic is low. I know people will think of this time as I spoke with Bert and he called it an anomaly. Yes and no. This just happens to be a time where we don't have as much aircraft noise. We can really study what are the causes of noise with some of the procedures, and we can also understand the communities who are having problems with noise in order to develop some metrics that better reflect our experience on the ground. I think this is the highest priority, not just for regional discussions, but discussions with your community. And I can't imagine that this is, this has to be the most important thing. And I also mentioned in my email that this goes back to the Arrivals Technical Committee. I was at the inaugural meeting. I shared a slide from that meeting about metrics. So I would just like to request that this go on an agenda item as soon as possible for Arrivals. Thank you.
Thank you. We definitely will consider it. And do we have any additional public comment? Linda, Angela?
We do have one more.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm having some technical difficulties. I really apologize. We do have one more hand raised from Darlene. Please accept this request to unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking.
Item number 1, FAA Administrator Dixon responded to the Quiet Skies Caucus request on January 24th with a 20-page letter, including a reference to the San Francisco area on overnight departures out of San Francisco to fly over the Bay versus the city. Dixon offered twice-a-year meetings, spring and fall, with the Quiet Skies Caucus. Let's not miss this opportunity to dialogue with the FAA. The Roundtable should consider submitting questions and comments in advance of the meetings to caucus member Rep. Spear. Item 2, thank you for including the Palo Alto topic for membership in the minutes earlier, and that will be considered for the agenda in August, I think it is. Thank you. Item 3, in February, Ivar mentioned that he was checking with the FAA to put a permanent monitor outside of the 65 DNL contour for Palo Alto. I wanted to check if there was any status on that, and if there's anybody attending this call from the FAA, if they could help with the response, given that it's been a 4-month elapsed time. My last item is regarding metrics. The FAA issued a metrics report for section 173 and 188 of the reauthorization bill in April. And the FAA encouraged alternative metrics, but they did not fulfill the section 173 regarding alternatives to the DNL 65 standard. Getting new metrics is probably the most important thing that we can do. And I encourage the subcommittees to review the report and provide comments to the FAA. And this could also be included in the discussion topics with Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yepli.
Thank you, Chair. We have no more comments.
Okay, having none, then we will move on to our, so now I'm sorry, this is a little confusing here, but we're being asked to approve our consent agenda. So does anybody want to pull any items on the consent agenda?
It's approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Approve the agenda and consent agenda. Very well. So
I move.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. And so do we need to do a roll call on these as part of the procedures?
I think we technically do. I'm only going to read the names of members who have confirmed that they are present. So if I miss someone at the conclusion, please speak up and let us know your vote. City and County of San Francisco, Mr. Satiro.
Aye.
Elizabeth Lewis.
Aye.
Davina Hurt.
Aye.
Terry O'Connell.
Aye.
Ricardo Ortiz.
Aye.
Pamela DiGiovanni.
Aye.
Sam Hindi.
Yes.
Al Royce.
Yes.
Cecilia Taylor.
Yes.
Ann Schneider.
Aye.
Mike O'Neill.
Yes.
Ann Wengert.
Aye.
Janet Borgens.
Yes.
Mark Adiego.
Yes.
Tom Livermore. Is there another voting member of the
Yes.
roundtable?
Yes, it's Adam Rack, San Carlos. Vote yes.
Thank you, Councilman. The motion passes.
Thank you. So with that, we will move on to presentations, and the first one is for me. And first, before we say anything at all, I just want to thank Linda Walden and Angela Montes for their extraordinary work picking up after James left and trying to put everything together and try to get us back on track. And then after we have the issues with our staffing, then we have the COVID and it changes everything. And so it's very challenging times, and the two of you have really stepped up and made the business of the roundtable continue, and I really appreciate it. As the new chair, you guys have been invaluable, and I can't say enough. So thank you, thank you. To the members, I appreciate your patience with our last meeting being canceled, and coming to today. I think we have a lot of things that we have pending. Some of the projects that we were working on have been delayed because of the turmoil. But I promise you we're picking up and we're going to continue our mission. And having the meetings is the most important mission, because that's where we get to air issues like the ones that were just brought up about the Palo Alto membership, which it's just to the Palo Alto community. It was an oversight mixed in with some of the craziness. So we will have it on the agenda next time. And truly, I apologize, because our intention was to have it on the agenda today. And so we will make it up. Our mission continues to be, the most important part is to air all the grievances, all the concerns that the citizens have. But we also would like to move the needle as far as noise. And I think we have some initiatives that may bear fruit in the near future, and I would be very happy to announce them, but I think we need to work on them a little more before we can bring them to the public. But I do think we have some some positive movement, and I'll be happy next meeting to talk about it a little more. With that, I want to thank all of you for being here, and I hope you all stay safe, and we will move on to our introduction. We do have members of the
Sorry,
FAA.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes,
a reminder about the website.
Oh, thank you. We did discuss that. We are in the process of reworking our website. We are talking to a vendor and it is in negotiations. I think, again, having communication be the most important part of what we do in this roundtable, having a robust website is incredibly important, and I think that has become a very, very high priority. And so stand by. We will have more information on that at our next meeting. Ms. Wolin, did I forget anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Good. Very good. So with that, we do have members of the FAA in the audience. We have not submitted any formal questions to the FAA, so I don't believe they are prepared to answer any of our questions tonight. And they have asked that we provide the questions ahead of time to allow them to prepare for their answers. So, but we've had two very good meetings recently with the FAA for introductions and to discuss some of the issues that the roundtable has in its agenda. And with that, Raquel Gervin, would you be the person introducing your staff?
Yes, it would. And I was just going to ask, would you like us to be on video? I don't know if that would. Or we can just be on.
Sure, that would be great if you are available.
Okay. Hello, good evening. My name is Raquel Gervin. I am the FAA's regional administrator for the Western Pacific region. It is my understanding that there are a number of new members on the San Francisco Roundtable, so I thought I'd just share a little bit about our region and kind of what the agency's priorities are. So the Western Pacific region comprises California, the states of California, Hawaii, Nevada, and Arizona, as well as territories in Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Marianas Islands. One of my office's roles is really to represent the FAA in the region and serve as our communication link between the Office of the Administrator, Steve Dixon, in Washington, D.C., and the public, the industry and officials and government agencies in the region. So in the last year, I've had the opportunity to attend the San Francisco Roundtable meetings, and I thought it'd be helpful to share some of the points that the administrator has made to members of Congress that I think are relevant to the FAA's engagement with the Roundtable. First and foremost, the statutory mission of the FAA is to manage the national airspace safely, efficiently, and we are carrying out modernization of the national airspace, including the deployment of satellite-based navigation procedures consistent with congressional direction, because it systematically adds safety and efficiency to the national airspace we are charged with managing. Of course, managing noise issues arising from airport and airspace projects is important in furthering our statutory mission. Saying that, though, aircraft noise is a shared responsibility with the aviation industry, and it's not solely an FAA issue. So that's why the FAA has embraced community roundtables, in which we have participation broadly, both with communities and industry, as the appropriate place to engage with stakeholders about aviation noise concerns. So joining me tonight are two FAA team members who will become familiar faces to you if they aren't already in this roundtable. Fabiola Garcia, who is my senior advisor. She will begin attending your future meetings representing my office, and she will be joined by Sky Laron, our community engagement officer, whom some of you have already met. Fabi has had a lot of experience working in community concerns and with roundtables. So Fabi, I'm gonna pass it on to you to share some of your recent experience in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. Again, my name is Fabi Garcia, and it's a pleasure to see you today. I have worked on several roundtables, specifically in the formation of them. I assisted with the San Jose ad hoc committee that focused on South Flow. I also worked with the Santa Clara Santa Cruz roundtable in assisting them with standing up, and other roundtables that we had here throughout Southern California. Also, I have been attending the Santa Clara Santa Cruz Roundtable regularly since its first meeting, and I recognize some of the members of the community that are here. It's good to see you all here. I look forward to working with everyone, and let me turn it over to Sky Laron, who is our Community Engagement Officer. Thank you. Can't hear you, Sky.
I don't actually see Sky on. I wonder if he dropped off somehow.
I see
Sky is on, but he's not heard.
Sky, can you wave?
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
All right. Do I need to start over again or?
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to yet again introduce myself. My name is Sky Laron, Community Engagement Officer. I support Raquel in her office, specifically for Northern California. So I attend the San Francisco Roundtable as well as the Oakland Noise Forum and the SC Roundtable, as well as a Hawaii task force that also focuses on aviation noise. So last year, we stated to the San Francisco Roundtable that we were, as an agency, ready to address the Roundtable and Select Committee's night hush recommendations. We know this is a priority for the Roundtable, and so we've been working alongside the airports, San Francisco as well as Oakland, and subsequently with the airlines that operate out of both of those airports. So in consulting with the Roundtable leadership recently, we've agreed to provide an in-depth presentation to the Roundtable's technical working group. And I believe we were shooting for mid-July, but that's obviously up to the Roundtable. I know it's somewhere in the summer when the next technical working group meeting, and so the agency will be prepared to address in great detail the night hush recommendations. So on that note, I'll pass it back to Chairman Ortiz, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sky, Fabi, and Raquel. We really appreciate you being here, and we look forward to working with you. Again, our meetings that we've had up to now have been very productive, and I look forward to many more. So thank you for being here. Let's have, you have any questions or you want to address?
But so looking at emissions.
And again, our agreement with them is that we would prepare questions in advance.
Oh, so this is the same thing as before. Okay.
So
all right, it'll come up in my comments then.
I will leave it up to, but yeah, it doesn't sound like they're prepared to answer that question, so we will move on. But I think that's an important issue. I think we should maybe agendize it for future meetings. With that, any other comments from any members, any other questions? And having none, then we will open it to public comment. And do we have Ms. Montes?
Sorry, I see two. Ms. Montes is continuing to have some tech problems.
Okay, Ms.
So
Wolven.
right now I see 3 hands raised. I'll call on Jennifer first, then Rob, and then Darlene. Jennifer, I will please accept the request to unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I thought I would include in this section, and thank you to the FAA for their report. It is great to see some follow-up on the select committee and the roundtable recommendations. I just want to point out that night noise is a very, very big issue. I was actually disappointed to see in Mr. Dixon's letter that he pointed out to a success in the Bay Area for having moved some night flights to the Bay. And my understanding and that is, you know, and I don't mean to say, oh, they're getting, you know, attention and we're not, but I'm just looking at objective data at how much of the problem is being solved for night for all the areas and the communities that have expressed a problem. There's a recommendation in the select committee, which was presented by the FAA Western Regional Director, which is to have a voluntary agreement, and this is an agreement with airlines, industry, and the communities to address nighttime noise, and this is for the peninsula cities. That recommendation has unfortunately been pretty much ignored or undermined because there's been so much other activity with everything else with the various roundtables. But I just want to point out that nighttime flights are affecting the Mid-Peninsula in a very, very serious manner. And I hope that it will also be included. And that just makes me think that if you've already got a working group looking at night hush, why not use that same working group to look at the Mid-Peninsula issues? And I'll be happy to provide some written comments on that in the specific roundtable recommendation that was dropped. Thank you. That was voted on unanimously, but has not been followed up on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I would be very interested to read that, the written comments. So who is our next presenter?
I now will invite Rob to unmute himself, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I have a very brief comment. Regional Administrator Gervin introduced herself and her organization as stating it has a statutory mission to manage the national airspace with safety and efficiency. I would just like to add that under 49 Code of Federal Regulations 44.715, it appears that the FAA also has a statutory duty, quote, to relieve and protect the public health and welfare from aircraft noise and sonic boom. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we have one more comment.
One more. I will now, bear with me one sec. Darlene, you've been unmuted.
I'd like to thank the FAA for attending today. Point number 1, I mentioned that Airport Director Ivan Satero sent an a letter to the FAA about Palo Alto getting a permanent monitor outside of the 65 DNL contour. It has been 4 months. Maybe there's been a reply. I don't know. Maybe we'll hear that today. But if for some reason there isn't a reply, I want to see if there's any of the 3 attendees from the FAA that could assist with this request and get a reply. Comment number 2 is early on the community engagement position was started when the SCSC roundtable started and there was no job description available. If there is a job description, could you make that available to both roundtables? And my next point is there was a FAA reauthorization in 2018 regarding an ombudsman. And Don Scotta spoke about this at the A&E conference, and Mr. Dixon spoke about it in his letter to the Quiet Skies Caucus. Is Raquel Gervin our ombudsman? And whether she is or not, could we also get a job description on that role? Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Very good. And
we do have one more hand raised. Yvonne, I will Please accept this invitation to unmute yourself. Yvonne, you're still muted. Oops. Okay, now I'm having trouble, sorry.
Is there something I can help with, Linda?
No,
This
it's a
went to
technical thing.
Darlene. I think it was the wrong person.
No, now Yvonne has been unmuted. You should be able to speak.
This is Yvonne McHugh from Richmond, or Point Richmond, California. And I just want to reiterate comments I've made at previous meetings that we hope that you will include us in trying to have more of the airline traffic from and to SFO going over the bay rather than directly over our community. We're right around the Rebus waypoint. So I'm just commenting to please get us in the record that we really do need to be included in the plans and to make the FAA aware of the concentration of noise going over our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McHugh. Ms. Wolin, any other?
That is it for now.
Very good. So with that, let me do this back. Okay, so with that, now we will move on to the report from the San Francisco Airport Commission, and that would be our airport director, Iva Sartero. Welcome, please give us your report.
Okay, thank you, and thank you all for joining tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a update on COVID-19 at SFO, as you all are aware, we've remained open as an essential infrastructure throughout this crisis. Our traffic is down to 3% of where it was a year ago at this time. We're seeing a little bit of an increase over the past few weeks, still down about 95%. And just in terms of flight activity, what would have been, say, 1,300 aircraft operations a day, we're down to about 250 to 300. We are seeing some international routes, some restoration of international routes, but we anticipate through the month of June, it will continue to be down 85% from where we were last year. Employment's been impacted significantly in SFO. We employ about 46,000 people total at SFO. 75% of those are furloughed right now. And we have our employment office that's working with a lot of our tenants, concessionaires, and working on programs to prepare for return to work with the hopes that, that we'll see air service start to rebound over the next several months. We're also in the midst of a recovery framework document from recovery to resilience, and this will guide our efforts as we return to more normalized traffic. You know, my own estimation of what does that return look like, I think it would be a success if we were at 50% of our traffic by the end of the year. I think this is a 2 to 3 year recovery, and that's how we're preparing financially to make sure we can weather this. You know, what is the new normal of air travel and what to expect at SFO? And we are participating on a national level and even a global scale of what that looks like, the new normal of air travel. From, if you've been to SFO, you can notice that facial coverings are worn throughout the facility as required by the county order. We did decide to hand them out. We did see probably 75% compliance, and now I think we're up to about 95% compliance. We hand out about 300 a day, and half of those go to employees at the airport. So it sends the right message too about the importance of face coverings. You'll also notice physical distancing markers throughout the facility, and particularly in those queue areas that are subject to crowding. And you know, our main areas of triage are around the checkpoints, the concessions, and of course, working with the airlines in their check-in process. Hand hygiene, an important part of that, hundreds of hand sanitizers throughout the facility, clear protective barriers in those passenger-facing operations around the ticket counters and information booths, and then certainly the sanitizing of our facilities and all of, particularly the high-touch areas are a particular focus of our custodians. We also did shut down our boarding area A facility, and we will continue to keep that closed and really trying to compress our operation so we can focus our resources on the operation that is still in use. GBAS is always an important topic, I know, for this group, and we are investing $10 million. I think you all are aware. We've had delays, as I've spoken of in the past, about delays with contracting with Honeywell. I am happy to say we've had a breakthrough with Honeywell, and we are proceeding with a contract. We were hoping to fly the overlays by 2021, the first overlays, but now it's more like, second quarter of 21. Now it's more like the fall of 21. Second chance and replacement noise insulation program. I'm really focused on spending the money and investing in the community. And, I've made a strong commitment to the FAA that if they give us the money and we match it, that we will put that money to good use. And, we've changed our processes, and I'll tell you that there's been instances where we've given some homeowners 6 and 7 months to respond to our outreach, our numerous requests, and we can't get that relief to the community without a much more expedited process, and to show the FAA that we can invest in the community with the monies that they commit. So I appreciate all the mayor's support on the new process going forward. And that process allows for a 10-day period, which the airport reaches out to those residents. And any lack of response, we then forward to the mayor and ask for their assistance for another 10 days. So my approach is to make this happen within 20 to 30 days so we can move on if we have non-responsive residents and move on to residents that are interested and want to take advantage of this. Really appreciate the mayor's supports that are involved in this. Noise monitoring, we, as was mentioned a number of times, the letter to the FAA about permanent noise monitoring, and we've had progress in terms of what revenues potentially could be used for permanent locations, and I expect in the next week we'll have a more definitive answer. Our proposal would be 3 locations outside of the 65 CNEL, and I am hopeful within the next week we can confirm that that will become reality. And then noise portal introduction. This roundtable goes back decades, and it was the first organization of its kind in the U.S. It's continually functioned to the benefit of the community and the airport, and allowed for improved communication and engagement with each other. And I think we have a new portal that the team has spent a lot of time and effort to develop, and it is a place where the community can go for information, education, and answers. We've made a $4 million investment in this system, and we are pleased to introduce you to it this evening. So I would like our team to set it up and run you through the new portal.
Thank you very much, Ivar, and thank you to the entire SFO team, and thank you also to the Roundtable having me here. It's a very, very exciting day because, as Ivar indicated, this is the first time a portal like this is being launched at any airport in the United States. And I think it's important as we look at what we're doing, how we got here. And in the decades of the Roundtable and the engagement with San Francisco Airport, everybody's been interested and wants to understand what's going on in my community. If you live in Foster City, arrivals are one of the most important things for you. And so what this web portal does is, most importantly and fundamentally, it provides personalized data of where you live and where you want to learn about. And if you look at on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there's a video that's playing, and this is the video that you get when you first launch the page. There's a cone. That cone, there's a lot of analytics in this website to get all the data, again, localized to your area and your specific community. Real-time data is critical in today's world. And so as you'll see later on in the presentation from Bert, we're going to show the web track. Portal. You'll be able to see the real-time data. This portal itself will be updated continuously. So it gets the data local to your community as well. And one of the fundamental things in this process is the collaborative aspect of it. So we've been working very closely with the SFO team. Members of the Roundtable have been involved providing feedback on this, but it doesn't just stop here today. So as you'll see, please provide feedback. This will continue as the weeks and the years go on. So without further ado, I'd like to pass this over to Bert Ganong for a further presentation.
Thank you for the introduction, Greg. It's great to be presenting with you tonight. At the Sfo Noise Office, we get asked a lot of questions about aircraft noise, and we've heard you loud and clear. We want to make sure that we have the access to the answers you want, using the most accurate, up-to-date information that our own staff uses on a daily basis. So we partnered with our noise monitoring system provider, EMS EnviroSuite, and created Noise Portal. Through our Sfo website, the current website, you can see we have updated based on requests and response. We've given the promotion of the website a much easier aspect to find. It's now flysfo.com/noise. It's no longer buried. Also, too, people will have told us that finding noise using the search bar doesn't work. Well, it does now. It promotes, and noise is the top return when you look at flysfo.com. So we're going to be launching an entirely new website based on about a month, and we're excited to show you the portal. So we're going to skip there through here and show you the data that you crave right at your fingertips. It's highly personalized. It's in real time. Again, it comes from the same source where we receive our facts and figures. In a way, the portal is simply clicking the new tab called Aircraft Noise by City. As Greg mentioned a moment ago, the video is accessible by sliding the slider down at the bottom. Recommend that you view that real quick once you get there, so you can see how the data is derived and presented. It's a very short video and it's very informative. When you get here, if you set your location, you'll be treated additional posts and statistical information about flights near your home in the form of graphs and other interactive tools. But if you choose to use the default location, notice how the map appears and the continue button appears. So why is setting your location so important? For this example, we've chosen to use a specific location information. However, if one chooses to remain anonymous, the site will show you just generic details about the airport information. The other information about the area near you is gathered by selecting your location. We chose Burgess Park, located at 701 Laurel Street in Menlo Park, California, for its variety of information for our display tonight. I should add that by providing location data, it's only stored where you're using the website, and it's cleared each time you clear the cache or close the window. The site will filter information and only show the topics and data that you find most important for your location. The site with the additional posts and statistical information about flights near your home and graphs for other interactive tools. I want to quickly address each of our categories at the top. The first one, general information, contains a combination of general information about how the airport operates and what's being done to manage aircraft noise within the location information supplied by the user. For find flights over your area, Here, you'll find all the statistical information and records related to these flights over your area. The third category, aircraft noise level, displays all the applicable information to noise and noise monitoring terminals placed around SFO. The third category, report a noise event. This category, you can submit a noise complaint and a noise report. It's fairly intuitive, so we won't drag you into that now. Let's go to the first category and drill down a little bit. In this section, you'll see a combination of information that's generic to the user with regard to operations at the airport, such as the number of flights, flow information. In this section, the first of our 4 posts shows summary data about the airport and how it operates. These summary posts are available to anybody who enters the site, including those who choose to remain anonymous. When a pin is dropped or an address is given, as we just did, more posts will appear. These additional tabs have information that changes based on the given location. The interactive information is shown through graphs and animations, and additional specific information is applicable to your areas provided in text within each of the post windows. Let's go to the first one. What are SFO operations like on a daily basis that we're going to discuss tonight? In this one, we can see the flow patterns for SFO. So when we're talking the standard operations that SFO sees, such as this, our West plan, we can hover over the flight tracks and see the diamond arrivals here. Moving on, we'll see the stick departures as they come out of the area, the surfer arrivals, and then on to the pirate and others. We'll let you explore those on your own. The next one I'd like to treat you to is the Southeast plan. This is a reverse flow, typically occurs during foul weather. And you can see we have the Sfo departures leaving the area. We have the gunner departure leaving the area. We have the waves arrival coming into SFO. And just above that, you can see the bodega and stiller arrivals as they combine to come into SFO on runways 19. And finally, we have the preferred nighttime operation up the bay. And you can hover over that again and see the titles for the operations. In addition to airport flow information, you can see what the most utilized aircrafts are for the selected month. If we go down to what planes fly most frequently out of SFO, click on that, we'll see a bar graph, a simple bar graph. If you hover over the bars, it'll give you a little bit more detail on what it is. If you right-click on any of the graphs, they'll give you the option to bring up a table. So if you prefer to see the table data, it's right there, visible to you. We're going to skip over our second category by going over to the aircraft noise levels for a moment. In here, we can see 3 posts, and we'll look at, does SFO measure aircraft noise and where? So by clicking, we'll bring up our information in the form of our noise monitors, their locations, and for the month, you can see at the top there, Lauren just expanded our screen for us so we can see it much closer. That's that double-headed arrow at the bottom. But if you click on one of the noise monitoring locations, such as Site 1 here in San Bruno, you can see that the information on total events, average events, and arrivals and departures over the area is brought to the screen. We also can do this for each of our sites. But let's go ahead and go down to another section. How loud is it in my area? In this one, we see 4 dashboards where you can get just a variety of information based on Site 1 at the top. You can see Site 1 for San Bruno, April 2020. Gives you the arrival and departure counts and decibel levels. But I want to show you one thing really interesting. If you look, we have the arrivals in teal. The blue, darker, is our departures. But if we change the location to site number 12, let's say, in Foster City, it flips. We now see arrival operations outnumbering departures, and we get the monthly figures for those. And in the lower right, you see a count by week. Moving to the next post, by using the next button at the bottom, we'll see a decibel equivalent chart. This gives you a rough idea of what noise levels are like and what type of items create those noise levels. So it makes it a little bit more understandable. And if we roll down a little bit more, we'll see our aircraft getting quieter over time, starting with the original Boeing 707 and getting down to the Airbus A220 Neo. We have another table below that where we can see our noise contours. So starting with our largest 1983 contour and working down through more current time, we can see the other contours. And let's jump to our fourth category, report a noise event. And this one, fairly simple, takes you straight to the ability to file a noise report and the information about that. But before we go too deep here, I'd like to jump back to our second category we skipped, because I'll show you an easy way and an informative way to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and click on our flight tracking tool, WebTrack. And once we get in there, we'll see the information brought up on the screen. If we go to the layers box, let's real quick look at our noise contour. So you can see that in relation to the aircraft operations and the noise monitors at SFO. Let's say we wanted to hover over that aircraft on approach. We can see a tag for it. And then if we click on it, it brings us more information in the form of a post. We click on that, we get that packet of information in the panel. In the lower left, we'll see a comment bubble. If we click the comment bubble, it will then ask you if you would like to report that aircraft. You click yes. It fills in the information on that aircraft and gives it to us direct in the noise office when you file that noise report. Before we leave this screen, I want to jump around for a few items real quick. If we can clear that panel. We'll look at, let's look at departures under layers real quick. Turning these on, again, if we mouse over them, it'll tell us about what they are. So we have the truckin', we have the night, we have the stick, this antenna. And if we do the same for our operations on the arrivals, we can see that they're there as well. We'll go ahead and turn those off for now, clear our screen a little bit, and close that layers box out. This is all customizable, and I invite you to play with it when you get there. We'll go to our historical information. We can then select based on the date and the time the operations that we would like to see. Go down and set the time, and then it will then populate. And then at the bottom of the screen, which isn't, I believe, presenting, at least I don't see it, there's a slide bar and also the ability to speed up aircraft. So you can do a little bit of investigative work on your own. To quickly recap, our partnership is leveraging the experience of our vendor, EMS, in displaying Sfo Noise Office data in a concise and meaningful and transparent way. Sfo brings local knowledge and experience to the table with our information so that our visitors are able to have a feature-rich experience that is both informative and helpful. We'd love to spend time introducing you to all the features, but feel your time would be better spent exploring it on your own. One of the best features of the Sfo Noise Portal is it's not static. We update the data monthly, so there's current data along with the ability to go back in time and compare as many of our information the visitors inform us they wish to do. We also have the ability, based on feedback that we receive, to create and display new items. This noise portal is completely designable in relatively short time, may be changed to add those features that our visitors tell us they'd like to see in the future. We will collaborate with the San Francisco Airport Community Roundtable to bring these changes to the site. It will be a place to visit regularly. We're emphasizing our noise website redesign, flysfo.com/noise, and our noise portal, noise.flysfo.com. Please visit and explore what we have done for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is really, really exciting, Bert. Thank you so much. I think I know what our #1 link is going to be on our new website. So that's exciting. And so I appreciate the presentation. And Mr. Director, thank you for your presentation. And I'll go to my colleagues. Do we have any questions for the airport staff?
I do. Yes.
Go. I can't see who that is, but I'll go ahead, please.
So I'm not sure if you're talking to me or this is Janet Borgens with Redwood City.
Thank you, Janet. Yes, you.
Sounds like Councilwoman Borgens and Councilman Livermore would like to speak. So
very good. So we'll start with Councilwoman Borgens.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. This is amazing. I can do this. I tried to use the other side, and I have to agree it was a little difficult, but this felt much more inviting and engaging, and I got a lot more information. And as he was clicking on that, I could hear planes going overhead, and I knew exactly what was going on. It was like,
yeah, exactly.
Thank you. It was, this is really a game changer, and I do appreciate it. I think it's going to be much easier for everyone to be able to report in real time. So I appreciate the effort and all of the hard work that went into this. This was not an easy task, I'm sure, but I'm excited about it. So I hope I hope the community is engaged. They already are engaged in the old way of doing things. This is a new day. So thank you so much. I am excited about this.
Yeah. Thank you. Then Councilmember Livermore, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Ortiz. Ivar, I have a question for you. A question came up at one of the county meetings that I participate in from the town of Woodside, and that is with respect to what is the airport doing on COVID screening, especially on international flights. You mentioned that international flights are starting to increase, and the county is very concerned about having folks coming in who may or may not have been exposed to COVID-19.
Yeah, you know, and I heard about some of the remarks the other day, and I talked to Mike Callaghy today. I will be tuning in on Friday at the meeting, and I can give a brief on the airport and, you know, what we're doing. And I'll say that the flights that come in on international are handled by the Customs and Border Protection folks. We are fortunate at SFO to have the Center for Disease Control also have an office. And so their process is that anyone exhibiting symptoms will then be given a temperature check and a health screening, and may be told to shelter in place depending on that, the outcome of that. That is the extent of what happens for international traffic, and it comes through the federal agency who deals with that. So that is how international flights are handled.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, and I look forward to your comments on Friday on the county call. I would want to make a point, however, that yes, if they're exhibiting symptoms, that's all fine and dandy, but we all know that many people don't exhibit symptoms and are in fact infected. So that doesn't necessarily screen for those people. And I would love to see something more definitive happening in that area.
Yeah, and we would need the engagement of San Mateo County Department of Public Health to do anything further as far as inbound passenger screening goes. So that is a conversation that we can certainly have.
All right, thank you very much. And also my kudos to the noise portal. I noticed that the November 19th report was the last airport director's noise report, but I assume that the noise portal will take over that role.
You guys want?
No, it will not. There is a memo in the report. We, as has been mentioned, we upgraded our system. And yes, you need to break a few eggs when you're making an omelet. We broke a few eggs. The vendor disrupted the way our database intakes noise reports, and the geography is way out of whack. We're homing in on the issue. We're about ready to release the December report. And I believe as we get further into it, we'll have cleaned up the mess enough that we can go forward and not have any delay within a couple months.
Thank you, Bert.
Thank you for that, Bert. Appreciate it.
Colleagues, any other questions, comments?
I see Councilwoman Schneider and Councilman Adiego.
Perfect. So Councilmember Schneider, please.
Just tiny correction, Vice Mayor Schneider, but okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The new system looks really lovely. I haven't had a chance to play with it. Bert, did you want all of us to go play and send you comments?
Yes, please, if you would. I should have mentioned that. Yes, we'll take all the emails we can get on it.
Okay, and of course you know what I'm going to be asking. Can I go on there and will it work for ground-based noise?
We have all the information on there that is available. It's something that we may need to tailor in the future. Like I said, we do have that ability. But right now we have quite a bit of information, and I'd like you to get in there, get your feet wet, explore, and see what you find.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Bert, follow up on that one because, again, backblast is my thing, right? I see that you can see the airplanes departing. So if there's something on 1R, 1L that I can identify, I could, for backblast, I could identify the airplane actually as it's taking off.
You should be able to. Keep in mind that there would be a few seconds delay. Lauren, you mind bringing back up WebTrack real quick?
Chair Ortiz?
Yes.
If I could only add, I think that some of the noise that we thought was coming from one left or right is actually a 28 departure.
Well, you know what, Vice Mayor Schneider, I think that this would be a great tool to be able to determine that, or at least get a better estimation.
I agree.
So one of the beautiful features of this is you can see the permanent noise monitoring sites on there. When we deploy a portable site, you'll also be able to see that as well. It will.
Oh, nice.
So live in real time. So you can see the noise values here in the background, in the back area. And so when you see them rise based on a departure or possibly arrival using reverse thrust, good indication.
That's really amazing, really amazing.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. So colleagues, any more questions? Did we have somebody else waiting to ask a question before I open it to the public?
Ricardo, this is Mark Adiego. I'd like to.
Oh, please, Mark, please.
Yeah, thank you. Director Satiro, you know, the numbers you shared with us just a little bit ago are pretty frightening. You mentioned being down 95% in air traffic, and it sounds like maybe 35,000 positions have been furloughed, and as you know, a lot of those people reside in the communities right around the airport. In the past, we've used your passenger numbers to be a predictor as far as revenues and the way they grow. And I'm just wondering if you, on a regular basis, can share with us as your passenger traffic comes back incrementally, if you can be sharing that with the cities that are most impacted by the loss of passengers in their hotels and people getting to the airport and using the commercial parking structure. So any information you can give to us makes our ability to build a budget and project what's happening.
Leading indicator for TOT.
Yes, well put.
Yeah, great point. We're glad to do that, certainly, Mayor.
So I think, I must say, over many decades, this is the best I've slept in a very long time. But it turns out it's a guilty pleasure because of all the harm that's being done. I do have one question. I found myself, I wasn't sheltering in place for an afternoon, and I was in Foster City, and I was watching the aircraft arriving, and there still seemed to be some left and some right usage. And I was wondering, with the low traffic count, why it wouldn't all come in the run? I guess it's the right side that least impacts Foster City. Are you still using both left and right?
Pilots can request certain runways on their arrivals as preference, and maybe even Kathleen Wentworth has a better explanation than I do. But as I understand it, the controllers try to use 28 right because it moves traffic out further over the bay, and we have our offset procedure. Some pilots will request 28 left because they can get off the runway and to the terminals more quickly.
Director Satterwhite, if I may offer, we've been doing a lot of surveying and core sampling on the runways as well right now.
Core sampling?
Yeah, well, we are doing some construction on the runway, so there are closures which may have affected runway use as well, but yeah.
So the day I was there was probably core sampling and it pushed everything to the left side.
Could be.
Thank you. You look you look well rested. Are you working from home?
No, I am not working from home. I've been at work every day this week. Got home a little early and had a nice walk with my wife this evening. So
excellent. Yeah, it's good to see you.
Thanks. You too.
Okay, colleagues, any other questions before we open it up to the public? Having none.
Davina Hurd and Sam Hindi are.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Davina, please.
Actually, I didn't mean to raise my hand, but since it's up, I will just say that this is a really great site. In fact, I immediately just sent it to my city manager to add to our website. So thank you for all the hard work on it. Good job.
Yeah, good point. I think I'm going to do the same. And the Councilmember Hindi, I think you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great portal. Appreciate it. I think it's going to be very helpful, not just to us, but also to our constituents. The ability to dig in and get the information that is needed to assist us in figuring all this thing out. But I want to thank Mark for his question on behalf of Foster City. That's really one of the most frustrating things for us is we have talked so many times about utilizing 28 right, 28 left, and we have always been told it's in the SOP that they should be using 28 right unless they are dual approach. Yet, time and time again, I think something wrong with the process when the pilot has the ability to overrule the SOP, if you will, for no safety reason. That need to be addressed and that need to be looked at and reassessed. The pilot is requesting maybe for his or her convenience. I'm not sure why, but if there is no safety reason behind it, it should not be granted. So I'm not sure what is it that needs to be done so the SOP that are on the books are followed unless there's a legitimate reason not to.
Thank you. Yes.
I guess you can't see when we got our hands up.
I'm relying on the staff to tell me if there's a hand up because I cannot see it.
I just
So-
wanted to, along with Councilman Hindi and, is it Vice Mayor Diego right now? I want to make sure I get that right, Vice Mayor. I had the same question about usage of one left and one right. I would encourage all of you in your free time to go up to the BART parking lot on the 5th floor after 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the Gateway construction project is gone. But you've got this fabulous view of airport operations, and you can hear the different sounds, you can see the different sizes of planes. And I was up there just a few days ago and just wondered why certain planes went to one right and some went to one left. They all seem to do a sharp left hook once they get at the end of runway 1, once they've left the ground. So that I think maybe during this quiet time where there's more time to observe, we might be sending more questions to you. And I would be along the lines of Mr. Hindi that given this current time when the airport isn't that quiet, maybe there could be protocols that help the local communities that are downwind or down noise of the aircraft.
Thank you for that. And see, now I do see the hands, but I can't see everybody on there, so I apologize. Anybody else have any comments, or can we move on to public comment? So with that, Linda, we're gonna move on to public comment. And if somebody has any questions for the airport staff.
I do see 4 hands raised. I just want to point out that we're taking public comment for items 3 and 4 on the agenda because they were combined.
Perfect.
And Ms.
Thank you.
Montes is going to do a reminder of the procedure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. To raise your hand, you may press *9 if you are on the phone. For those that have raised their hands. Okay. So, Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone.
Hi, thank you. Kind of feeling a little guilty that I'm always the first one to say something, but thanks for this very interesting presentation with the new portal. I am interested in learning about the transition to EMS and ViroSuite. I understand they may be part of the prior company that you used, Brule & Care, with the data. And I was wondering about the historical information, because I think that's a really, people will capture understanding of what's happening to them at that moment, but a lot of what's been missing has been analysis going back to the different procedures that have affected changes in noise in communities. And so it would be really great to know how far back there's historical data. At one point, I know that SFO has had ANOMS data going back to 1999. And so, those are very different circumstances, I understand, but that would be great to have a database available of how procedures have evolved and to have that historical timeline. Thanks. That's all, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Bert. Do you want to comment on that, or do you want to save it for the next time?
We'll go ahead and address it next time.
Very good. Okay. So we'll go on to the next.
Thank you. Mark, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and you may begin speaking.
Hi, thank you. Just a couple of quick notes. On GBAS, I guess I would just ask again that Director Sotero, that you work with the cities that are going to be directly affected by this, which is essentially Palo Alto, East Palo Alto, and certainly the Bellhaven area of Menlo Park. And, we do have some concerns, particularly some of the transitions from the stars. Secondly, I noticed on the portal demonstration, probably the nearest monitor to where the all 3 arrival tracks are is about 8 miles away. So I'm not sure how it really provides good data. Secondly, I did not see, and maybe you said it would be in the future, but the Portola Valley monitor, the Woodside monitor, and I believe the one of the departure monitors, that Brisbane monitor, were not reflected in that, where they are areas that obviously get a significant amount of traffic. So I'd just be interested in how that's going to be dealt with. And on the comment about airplanes being noisier, that's true in general, but I think people should recognize that that's overwhelmingly on the departure side, because aircraft engines are getting quieter with particularly geared turbofans. Backblast and arrivals are not getting quieter. And so I think that's something that I think the roundtable should just, it's just a piece of information that I'd like to pass on, I think is important. I guess that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment. Ms. Montez, do we have any other public comment?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do. Peter, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Peter Grace, Brisbane. But great kudos for doing this. It's really good. Thank you very much indeed. And it's really good to hear that there's great flexibility within the system, and you're now offering real-time monitoring. Thank you very much indeed. I would like to make 4 comments. I see on the noise on the reports, you are showing 65 dB. I'd like to know how 65 dB is defined. Previously, noise events were defined as over 65 dB and lasting longer than 8 seconds, which led, to be honest, to considerable underreporting. And my second point is, can you comment, Bert, on what percentage of noise complaints come through the Stop Jet Noise site? To be honest, I find the site that you're offering too complicated for me to use. I'm a frequent noise reporter in San Mateo County, and the way I report noise is through the Stop Jet Noise site. I report on my phone, and then I review later on my computer. My third one is, on the maps you showed you could show layers of departures. Could you tell us on what these, certainly for the Brisbane Styx departures, on what they're based? And fourthly, how long can you go back and review data? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Thank you very much indeed. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bert, would you care to address any of those?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I can. Let's see. I hope you don't find the site too difficult to use. We've tried to make it fairly understandable, fairly easy to use. The maps and the layers of departures, they were based on the actual operations. We went ahead and placed a corridor over these. And so it's not all of them, it is the bulk of them. And so that's where that came from. The Stop Jet Noise is the bulk of our complaint traffic right now. Gives us approximately 98% of our traffic, 99 on a good day for them. We're actually very close to rolling out our own app that I hope you will find quite easy to use. And it would be great if you would move away from that over to the new one we have coming out in the future. So a little bit of a teaser there.
Thank you. Ms. Montes, do we have any other public comment?
We do have one more from Darlene Yapley. Please accept this invitation to unmute yourself.
Bert, thank you very much for the portal overview. I look forward to using the new tool. And Director Sotero, I want to give you a big shout out, not just for following up on the noise monitors with the FAA, but the continued support you've shown to the community to alleviate some of our issues. And I really want to thank you for that. I do have a question on GBAS. A while back, well over a year, there was a workshop, community workshop on GBAS, which was very productive. And there was a lot of questions that were submitted with the expectation that there would be a response. We were told that there was going to be a portal and a site that we could go to and get more information, get answers to our questions. So I realize a lot has changed, but I wanted to know what is the thinking now to respond to the questions, and is there an alternative to approach that?
Thank you, Ms. Yapley. Director Sotero, you want to respond?
Yeah, I don't know if my team's I believe we have the GBAS working group. I'm not sure when that last met. Maybe it's been a while. I was skeptical that we were going to come to an agreement with Honeywell in any kind of timely way, and it did drag out longer. So I think we really need to refresh our whole approach. And I definitely, Mark, appreciate your comments and the importance of community engagement as we move forward with GBAS. So I think unless one of my team members has a more direct response, we will have a more prepared plan going forward at the next meeting.
Thank you so much. Ms. Montes, do we have any other public comment?
No, we can move on to the next item.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. That was very exciting to hear, and really appreciate all the help and all the support. So look forward to working with you to get some relief. And with that, Justin, I hope you're still with us. We're moving on to an update on the FAA IFP Gateway Review. And this is Justin Cook, our consultant from HMMH.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just thought it would be a good opportunity this meeting to discuss the review that HMMH conducts every month. And kind of go over what the IFP Gateway actually is. So IFP, Information Flight Procedure. That's specifically for Mike O'Neill, who likes acronyms spelled out. So I try not to forget. There's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah, good.
So, this is the website for that, and it's basically an FAA tool to share information on new and updates to flight procedures. And so it provides many different types of information: charts, IFP production plans, coordination, documents. And so HMMH actually analyzes those documents that are posted. I did want to mention the disclaimer that pops up on your screen when you enter the gateway. I think it's important. And it's basically saying the website's intended for an aeronautical audience to provide technical comments. It's not intended for NEPA or any environmental regulations or to solicit comments about the impacts of those proposed changes. And so people commenting on them are organizations, sponsors, airport owners, things of that nature. So at the beginning of each month, and actually maybe even a couple times a month, HMMH looks at this gateway for the Bay Area. And based off of the documents posted, we determine the proposed changes and the reasons for the changes, and we try to categorize those by low and high importance. And I'll describe in the next slide what that actually means, because that's pretty critical to our review. And then lastly, our review includes any open comments that we want to call attention to the roundtable members. So high importance for HMMH. These are changes to the procedures that may result in a potential change. of a flight path, altitudes, compared to the prior published version. And it could be just a new procedure that may change or go over a new flight path that hadn't been there before. Those are the changes that we're looking for that are of high importance, and we would bring those forward in our review and to the roundtable body. And low importance are things such as, renaming a procedure waypoint where the waypoint doesn't move, adjusting notes or minimums, things that don't necessarily change a flight path or altitude. And so that's how we categorize those. Since we haven't met in a while, we actually, in your packet, provided 4 updates, 4 months of updates. There's a couple, 4 updates in those timeframes, dealing with Oakland of considered low importance, basically status changes of procedures to being published. And there's a few open comment periods that were in February, but nothing that has occurred since then. So HMH will continue to monitor the IFP gateway and bring forward that information to the roundtable. And that information will be included in the packets. So with that, that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So colleagues, any questions for Justin? Having none. Ms. Montes, any questions?
Thank
Any
you.
raised hand?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do have one raised hand. For anyone that is on the phone, please press *9 to prompt to speak. Jennifer, please accept this request.
Actually, I'm sorry, Ms. Montes. I think Councilman O'Neill wanted to pipe
Oh,
in.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to thank Justin for remembering about the acronym. Now, I don't know what your company's name is, HHMI or whatever.
I should have started with that. I should have started. Yeah.
Good one.
But you're welcome, Mike.
Okay, so
Ms. Montes, you can continue.
So we're back to Jennifer.
Oh, wait, now I
Sorry,
see Kathleen.
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Justin, quick question. With regard to the introductory disclaimer,
yes.
Has your company had any experience with whether or not the FAA would take comments from you as our technical advisor on some of these procedures, even though it may affect noise rather than affecting operations?
I believe in the early discussions when we were in the rounds of the technical working groups, and the FAA provided me with a slide deck on the IFP gateway updates. I believe that it was my understanding that the roundtable can comment as a body. And so HMH could be part of that submission through our, technical role with the roundtable. But it's my understanding that you as a roundtable organization, you can submit.
I wonder if there's still some folks, Raquel, and your team are still on. Thank you for staying with us. Do you have any comments or clarification on that? Can somebody unmute Raquel?
Hi, this is Raquel. Kathleen, I'm going to have to take an action on that because I am not totally sure. I think what Justin is saying is correct, but I must say it's not my organization that manages the IFP gateway. So we'll just have to take an IOU. That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you, Raquel. Moving on, any other questions from members? And having none, then we will move on to the public. Ms. Montes, if you could, I think there was Jennifer was standing by.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Jennifer, please accept this request on your microphone to begin speaking.
Thank you very much. It really is a great source of frustration that there is no way to track NEPA activity vis-a-vis the activity on the IFP gateway. And so I'll just use GBAS as an example. If someday we see GBAS go up on the IFP gateway and there hasn't been an extensive pre-planning and engagement period with the community, we're really failing completely on the issue of shared responsibility. I don't expect the FAA to do everything. I don't expect the airports to do everything. I don't expect the Sfo Roundtable to do everything, but we do have to find a way to track noise issues that are otherwise going through the IFP gateway only as operational issues. NEPA is supposed to be looked at the very earliest stages of any action, any FAA action. So really, when the communities are surprised about an activity that increases noise in their community, it's not going to, we can't blame being late on the IFP gateway and then not having a method. It's like being gagged and bound to not be able to say anything about the procedures. So this is the single most important item in terms of transparency. And I think the big test can be GBAS. The overlays, for example, and there's already a lot of issues that I'll point out in the legislative committee point about Section 173. Because right now, you know, these CADXs go out like pancakes and there's just a lot of questionable parts. We really just want real communication and for everybody to make an effort on this. It's not just one party. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Montes, do we have any other members of the public?
We have no more hands raised for this item.
Very good. Thank you, Justin. With that, we will move on to, on my list is the consent agenda, but I think we already approved the consent agenda, so we're going to just skip right through. Ms. Wolin, is that okay?
Yes, please.
Right. Okay, so we are now moving on to, I think there's some interest in this point, item number 8, the legislative subcommittee report. And I'm going to pass it on to our subcommittee chair, Councilmember Borgens.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. As explained in the memo in the agenda packet, the FAA is in the process of the rulemaking regarding noise certification of supersonic airplanes, which includes a 90-day public comment period. That ends July 13th. The introduction of additional supersonic aircraft into the NorCal Metroplex could have a substantial noise impact on our community. So therefore, it's important that the Sfo Roundtable engage in the process of rulemaking and the noise impact to our community and the rulemaking on these aircrafts. So normally, this is the type of action that we would bring to the legislative subcommittee to recommend to the full roundtable. However, given the circumstances and the short turnaround time, we're bringing this straight to you. And in the draft letter, there were 2 recommendations, and it is that the FAA follow its longstanding position of requiring new supersonic aircraft to meet the same noise certification levels as subsonic aircraft. And then B, supersonic aircraft should meet or exceed stage 5 requirements, which would remain consistent with subsonic aircraft and not create a new category that falls between stage 4 and 5. So after the discussion, I will probably try to move and approve this letter, but I would like to hear some discussion from my colleagues, the roundtable, and the community as we move forward. We have a ways to go, but I think here's our opportunity for some input. So I look forward to hearing what the committee or what the roundtable has to say. Also, if we move down into it, if everyone has read this, we go in. The next section will be, there's a letter in there to FAA from the roundtable. You'll see that letter. And then the next session, I'm using 2 computers, so bear with me here. We do have a report supersonic landing and takeoff noise. And that is also in your packet from Don Scatta. It says U.S. rulemaking process. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to read that. Do we want to bring that up, Linda, or do we want to have a discussion?
You mean the PowerPoint that was attached?
The PowerPoint.
I probably could, but wasn't quite prepared for. That was just his background information.
Oh,
But
that's just, we don't need, has everyone had the opportunity to look at that? It's quite in-depth.
it had been a presentation made to the Santa Clara, Santa Cruz Roundtable, so we were just using it as background.
Putting it in for information. It's not difficult to go through. So at this point, I would like to ask my colleagues or ask my roundtable members if they would be willing to move forward, and I would like to have a motion to approve the letter that's been submitted. Do we have discussion on that?
I think Chairman Ortiz's microphone is off.
Yeah, I sound better with
We
it
can hear
on.
you
don't
better
I?
that way.
Okay, so let me say that again. So we do have an action item, but before we get to that, let's hear from the members. If anybody has any comments or questions for Member Borgens, and then we'll open it to the public, and then we will
Ann
enter.
Schneider, yeah, Ann Schneider's not allowed to
So,
speak, so
colleagues.
keep her muted. Okay, I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Chair.
Janet and I spoke earlier.
We have two hands raised, one from Mike and one from Ann. So Mike, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the report, Janet. And I'm really concerned, being in Pacifica, that the old rules for the supersonic was that they could not go to the sound barrier over land, and at that point, that's where they make the sonic boom. However, and they wait till they get over water. And my concern is that I don't know how far over water they do it. Is it like 100 feet or is it 50 miles? But I would be concerned in Pacifica, since we would get most of the sonic booms, that if it's 5 miles, if it's 10 miles, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. And obviously it would be affecting Half Moon Bay and the unincorporated area of San Mateo County, as well as Santa Cruz and everybody else. So I would definitely like to be sure that we are covered in that. If it's 5 miles, it's done out at 5 miles. You know what I mean? Not at
Sure.
the corner of Crespi Drive and Lindemar and Highway 1.
I don't blame you. That's a very good question. That's a very good question.
Thank you.
I might suggest we hear from Ann Schneider, and then I'll ask Justin to respond to those comments.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Jan and I spoke earlier. When I was going through the PowerPoint presentation that was given at our neighboring roundtable, it brings up a lot of really good things to think about. And it would be really nice to have, if that person would come to us, or maybe to our next ground-based noise meeting before our comment period is due. And I believe the comments due July 13th, Chair Borgens.
Yes, I think it was July 13th.
I think it's July 13th.
Yes.
Which would give us a chance, because when I looked at that, I could only make assumptions of, wow, this affects this, or does this count for what I think they're calling lateral noise as opposed to flyover and approach noise? And it just wasn't enough detail. So I'd love to dive deeper in this at our next ground-based noise and maybe supplement the letter that comes now, or vote with those. I don't know how we won't have another roundtable before the comments are due.
Right.
Yeah, no, we don't. We have short fuse on this one, so I think we could try to amend it if we do get additional information. But anyway, so we have to make a decision on that letter today.
Well, then maybe if I can throw a couple of questions out, and maybe Justin could answer
Sure.
them. When I read through this, and it talks about new terminology, LTO noise, landing and takeoff noise, and then it says that the FAA will regulate LTOs as they do the noise contours and monitoring protocols already in place. Now, as Chair Ortiz, you and I know, we think that some of those monitors are not in the right place to pick up takeoff noise, to pick up the backblast noise. So if we approve this, this is akin to what Mr. O'Neill is saying, that the devil's in the details. And if they can put their sonic boom on a mile off Pacifica, but you still hear it in Livermore, who cares? You're still hearing it. So Justin, maybe
Sure.
if you could go into those. I am hesitant to approve.
I think I could help.
I'm wondering if our letter should push to say, we need to recognize that not all airports, not all monitoring systems have been picking up low frequency noise. So setting supersonic jets to the same standard is amplifying the existing problem. Did I make sense?
Yes, you
It's
did.
been a few months, so it's hard to get one's hands back around this.
Yes. So I'll start, I guess, with Mike's point regarding the supersonic. This rulemaking is dealing with certification of the aircraft, which is done for subsonic aircraft currently, and it's stage 3, stage 4, stage 5 categories. And as part of that certification process, they measure aircraft at 3 measurement points. And it's one on departure, one on arrival, and one that's sideline, lateral is what they call it. And how well the aircraft performs at all 3 of those measurement points determines whether it's certified stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. Stage 5 being the quietest and going down. And so that's what this is specifically dealing with. The FAA also is currently in a separate process looking at when it's supersonic, and that's different from this. This is specifically looking at the certification process of whether this aircraft, in a sort of similar process as a subsonic aircraft that's currently flying today. And I think that kind of goes along with what Ann was saying in terms of measurements. It really, this particular rulemaking doesn't have to do with the actual monitors around San Francisco. This is done at a manufacturer level after the aircraft comes off the assembly line. It's actually then measured in a controlled environment to a certain standard at specific points, so that it could all be, each measurement is done the same way across aircraft. And so I think that kind of clarifies some of those issues, hopefully. It's not to say that supersonic booms is not a concern, and that those are being looked at. And that's kind of what NASA is heavily involved in right now in terms of looking at how to minimize those booms to where it's the sound of a car thump instead of a loud boom. And they're looking and devising on, I could assume that the FAA is looking at how do we even set a standard or a policy for such a thing. But this is more for if manufacturers are wanting to build these supersonic aircraft, they're going to have to meet certain limits. And so they need to know those limits up front, and that's kind of where this is getting at.
Thank you, Justin. Chair Ortiz, can I do a follow-up?
Yes, please.
If all of us can go back to, I believe it was last October's meeting, where the FAA brought in one of their scientists, and he talked about how they measured the noise generated by an aircraft. And most of the reductions in noise have come in the in-flight part of an aircraft, not at their departure, and I'm not sure about their arrival, given a statement by somebody earlier. So the way I looked at that is, if all 3 of those measurement points were equal, each one carrying the same weight, okay. But I believe that over the years, emphasis has been placed on the airline manufacturers to reduce in-flight noise and not takeoff noise. So maybe if that is true, then can Janet, it's your letter, can our letter be modified to reflect that simply going by the same standards, which give an emphasis to in-flight over departure or arrival, that is not fixing the problem.
I could clarify, Mr. Chair, if you're okay with that.
Well, I just want to,
Or add to- go ahead.
the question is it really true that they're giving more weight to the in-flight? That I want to know if that's a true statement.
Yes, I could clarify. So given the 3 measurement points, an aircraft there's a limit established for each point, you know, a limit for departure, a limit for arrival, and lateral. Those limits are based off of the weight of the aircraft, because a larger aircraft is going to produce a louder noise level inherently, so it's not fair to necessarily hold them to the same standard. That being said, if an aircraft is over a limit, say they're over the departure, which is typically the loudest, even though the trend has been that engines are getting quieter and departures are getting quieter over this long period of time. If that, say, exceeds the limit, but the other 2 limits are, there's no exceedance on those 2 limits, and there's a delta to where it's looking at all 3, basically, is what I'm saying. So it's combining all 3 to determine if it's certified. So one could actually be louder and exceed a limit, but still be certified under because of the differences of the other 2. If that,
okay,
I'm trying to explain it. It gets pretty technical, but I'm trying to explain it.
So here we're flirting with 9 o'clock. And I really want to get things moving. We still have quite a bit on our agenda. So any other members who have any questions or comments on the letter? And again, the action item, the question before us is, do we send it or do we not send it? Because at this point, we don't have the time to amend it. And so let's keep that in mind. So if I have any other comments from colleagues.
Yeah, that we have Anne, go ahead. And then Mike, I think you lowered your hand now, but I think it's just Anne for the members.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. I was going to talk about this in my report on the sort of multi-jurisdictional, but there was a request that I just received yesterday, and it was further discussed this morning from the SCSC chair and then it really goes to Ann Schneider's earlier request, which is to connect the person at the SCSC who worked directly on this, because apparently they saw our letter in the packet after I'd spoken with them yesterday and directed them to our packet, and had an interest in having a conversation between Janet and Lisa Matichek from Mountain View, who has been, I think, instrumental in that group in terms of putting together the letter. So one recommendation we might make, Chair, is that if Janet is able to connect, and her committee is able to connect with Lisa and has recommended changes to this letter that would reflect those discussions, I think that if it's reviewed by the legislative committee, and again, the principal points of the letter, I think, are approved by our group this evening, I certainly would be comfortable with giving Janet and her team the final editing required to meet the FAA deadline, since we can't meet again as a body.
So stand by, you can make a motion in a few minutes.
Okay.
Colleagues, any other comments before I open it to the public? Having none, Ms. Montes, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as a reminder, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand through the Zoom feature. For those joining by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. Peter, please accept this request to unmute your microphone.
To be honest, what I'm asking about is item 6 that was not covered. I'm really surprised. I'd feedback. I wanted to give feedback on the director's report, and I sent the PDFs to Angela to show. I don't know whether this is the right time to do it or whether I should wait for next time. So I'm stopping now.
Okay, so item
Speech, I
6.
feel I've been cut off.
Item 6 was part of the consent agenda. We voted on that earlier. I do feel that there maybe is a little confusion, and we should have voted on that closer to where it was on the agenda. So I apologize for that. But we did not, nobody pulled that one. It was voted on. So what I would recommend is that you give us some written comments, or you comment on the next meeting. We can open it up for you to comment on that report.
Thank you very much. I'll submit my reports. To be honest, Ricardo, I had sent the reports to you, and Bert and others and Angela. So I'm a bit upset about it, but thanks a lot. And I'll report, I'll comment next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the confusion. So with that, any other members of the public? And this is for the item number 8.
Yes, Darlene, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you, Chair Borgens, for your prompt efforts in creating a letter on the supersonic noise certification. As was mentioned by Ann, the SCSC Roundtable developed a comment letter as well. After the letter was presented to the full Roundtable for approval, the subcommittee actually spent more time on one topic, given it was important to get it right. And the topic was that the FAA's proposed rule would set a new expectation. And I think Member O'Neill mentioned something related to this, which is that no matter how far out a resident is from the airport, they could be exposed to the landing and takeoff noise levels that are equal to the noise experienced by residents a few miles from the airport. We cannot allow noise certification standard to be used for the entire flight path. The FAA wants to use their standard methodology, which is measurement and measurement locations. The new noise reducing technology could circumvent those long-standing methodologies. Residents on the ground past the noise measurement point should be able to expect noise levels from aircraft using the newly permitted noise reduction technologies that is consistent with aircraft that do not use them. Generally speaking, the further from the airport a residence is, the less landing and takeoff noise they should receive, just like today. Therefore, please consider adding a third recommendation to your letter. Suggested copy has been sent to Chair Borgens, but it could be tuned as well. We must protect the communities in the same way that 65 DNL does not truly reflect the negative noise impact of NextGen. The established technology and methodology alone will not prevent the noise impact of these newly permitted technologies. Please address this in your letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you. And to Vice Mayor Ann Schneider for all of your comments, because this is really difficult to articulate. But if this would be a vaccine, I feel that all of these things are sort of lining up to get done, but the safety of the vaccine is an issue. And that's something where the FAA has not shown responsiveness to noise concerns for people on the ground. And that is reflected in the fact that they sort of undermined Section 173 in the report to Congress by saying it was fulfilled by Section 188. It was two very different things. And just roughly, when Congress asked the FAA to look into making new noise rules, they were responding to lobby from aircraft manufacturers and all the interested states that are going to create jobs, and which is great, but they never really looked at the safety of what this new noise would be like. I mean, we're experiencing new noise, different noise that has never been studied before. And it just keeps on getting deposited without being studied. I mean, Palo Alto, which is fairly impacted, has never had a single adequate environmental review that shows something that has that even approximates what we're experiencing. So I think this is where you can really represent us, and not just your constituents, but this is an issue for many people around the country. And this just isn't safe until the FAA has really demonstrated understanding of all of the issues that we've raised in the last 5 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and again, let's go. Any other members of the public? And I do ask for brevity. We are getting late and we have many more items to cover.
Thank you, Chair. We have one more hand raised for this item. Rob, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you. I applaud the letter you're considering, but I also encourage you to add a paragraph to address the major wrinkle with the FAA's proposal that Darlene spoke to a minute ago. I'd like to provide a little more color to what she said. The reason this is FAA, which upend an airplane is from the airport, the less noise somebody on the ground is going to be exposed to. The protocols for regulating this kind of noise, landing takeoff noise, rely on noise levels being established at 3 points close to the airports, as Justin said. But with this assumption being upended, an additional requirement is needed in order to make sure that residents are made whole. The FAA's solution is to allow the landing takeoff noise on the ground at any distance from the airport to equal the noise at those measurement points near the airport, which means that you could be 10, 15 miles from the airport when the technologies goose the jet engines. They relax the throttles that were placed on the jet engines to meet the noise limits 2 miles from the airport, and cause a huge amount of noise that equals but doesn't exceed the noise 2 miles from the airport. So we encourage you to consider amending the letter to ask the FAA to tighten this requirement so that residents past the noise measurement points can continue to expect that the noise from aircraft using these new technologies be consistent with aircraft that don't use these technologies. And to be clear, while this is for supersonic now, it could be applied to subsonic in the future. I encourage you to address this offline after this meeting with the consent of the chair and the chair of the legislative committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Chair, we have no more hands for this item.
Very good. So let's open it. Councilmember Wenger, you had a very interesting proposal. Maybe you would like to convert that into a motion.
I'd be happy to, but I do want to give Janet a second to react to the idea of taking on the task, since we only have, I think the 13th is the deadline. Yeah, so there's, you've got
Mayor Schneider has her hand raised as well.
Yeah, so I would I would be interested in hearing other members from the roundtable before making the full motion, and obviously first probably from Janet to hear her response.
I'm absolutely up to it. So whatever we need to do, we will make it happen. So absolutely, thank you.
That's the spirit. Okay, so any comments to help craft the motion?
Ann Schneider has her hand up.
My comment was I really appreciated Ann Wengert's comment, and I think that's a great solution, and I have confidence in Janet.
Okay. Well, then I would make a motion that we approve the letter as drafted, but as to be amended by on the recommendation of the legislative committee chair by Janet Borgens.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
So moved, Terry O'Connell.
So we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Having none, we will take the roll call vote.
I'm going to read by organization name. Excuse me. San Francisco Airport Commission. San Mateo County Board of Supervisors.
Yes. Dave Pine.
CCAG Airport Land Use Commission. Carol Ford has joined us in the interim. I'm not sure. She's saying yes, but is still muted, but I see her nodding.
That's a yay.
Town of Atherton.
Yes, Elizabeth Lewis.
City of Belmont.
Yes.
City of Brisbane.
Yes, Terry O'Connell.
Camera on because the light.
City of Burlingame.
Dark.
Yes, Ricardo Ortiz.
City of Daly City.
I'm turning it off in a minute.
City of Daly City. We'll skip City of Foster City.
Yes.
Half Moon Bay is not present. Hillsborough.
Yes.
Menlo Park.
Yes.
Millbrae.
Yes.
Pacifica.
Yes.
Portola Valley.
Yes.
Redwood City.
Yes.
San Bruno. I don't believe there's a member. I'm sorry, San Bruno. Adam, are you still on?
I'm San Carlos.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote you down wrong. I think there's nobody here from San Bruno, but I'll call San Carlos then if I skipped you.
Yes.
Oh, my paper's cut off. I'm so sorry. San Mateo, I don't believe is present. City of South San Francisco.
Yes.
And Woodside.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for a nice commentary. And we're moving on to item number 9, Portable Noise Monitor Placement Subcommittee. And I will pass it on to our subcommittee chair, Terry O'Connell.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. As you know, the Sfo Noise Office recently upgraded its aircraft noise monitoring system to new state-of-the-art equipment and software. The equipment consists of 28 permanent fixed noise monitoring terminals and 8 portable noise terminals. That's 4 more terminals than we had in our previous system. In the past, the Roundtable has expressed interest in being more involved in the decision-making related to the placements of the portable noise monitor terminals. And as you'll see in the memo, the ad hoc subcommittee on noise monitor placement recommends that the noise office first maintains the allocation of 4 permanent portables in their present rotation, utilize the remaining 4 portable monitors in an expanded short-term monitoring program where the requests for those should be submitted to the noise abatement office. And should the request exceed the availability, or then we would prioritize, and the noise office will submit requests to the ad hoc subcommittee on noise placements. Right at this point, we think that there will be enough to do a very robust portable system. And our subcommittee will consider criteria such as geographic balance, socioeconomic status, and perceived noise impacts. So we really did not want to limit where these monitors could be placed, and that we realize that there are many factors and different communities that have noise that would like to get measurements. So we want to make it as open and transparent on how those resources can be allocated. So with that, I would make the recommendation to approve the policies that we've submitted. And if there's any members of the subcommittee that would like to chime in on a comment, I think that would be great.
Thank you very much for all your work on this. Colleagues, anybody who have a comment or question for Council Member O'Connell?
I see Ann Schneider's hands raised.
Sorry, folks. You know I live, eat, and breathe this. Terry, I think it's a great memo and I support it. I just wanted to point something out from ground-based noise. Prior to the pandemic, we had been hoping to use temporary monitors to try to figure out how noise might be concentrating up canyons. Now it's so blessedly quiet, it seems not the right time to do that. But I would just want your team to know that at least while we try to figure out how sound behaves, that option is out there.
Thank you, Ann. I think that we really did want to give the as much flexibility to both the airport into responding to noises and how we can best get information about them, and also give some extra response availability through the Roundtable organization. So I think that the airport believes, the Noise Abatement Office does believe that they'll be able to handle those requests.
Excellent. I'm happy to second if you need a second.
Let's hold off until we hear from the public. Members, anybody else have any questions? Having none, then Ms. Montes, if we could open it up for the public, and I beg you to please be brief in light of the late hour.
Thank you, Chair. We actually, for this item, we've gotten 2 written comments as well, so I will go ahead and read those.
Thank you.
First comment is from Rebecca Ward from Palo Alto. I request a portable noise monitor be put in Palo Alto. 3 routes of concentrated jet traffic coverage low over Palo Alto on their final approach to SFO, including multiple 747 cargo planes in the middle of the night on SERFR3. Second comment is from Mike Scholl from Palo Alto. I'm writing to express concern about how new permanent noise monitors were allocated by SFO. Permanent monitors were warranted in Palo Alto given the dramatic increase in concentration in traffic that has been directed there over time. I would ask SFO and the FAA to ensure that the new permanent monitors are allocated to Palo Alto based on demonstrated traffic volume, given that these are federally funded and should be allocated based on impact. Temporary monitors are nearly useless for community awareness and academic research on traffic issues. The fact that Title 21 allows them is not relevant to this decision. Title 21 only applies to cities in the SNEL 65 contours and not to most cities in San Mateo County, much less Palo Alto. And SFO is no longer even in violation of California Title 21 land use regulations. Do the right thing, provide permanent monitors in Palo Alto. The SIDBY waypoint would be a good location as it is used by all 3 arrivals over the peninsula, and it was purposely placed there to lower altitudes. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn to spoken comments. I see 1 hand raised from Darlene. Please accept this request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you, Chair O'Connell, for the recommendations letter in the packet. Early on, there was a discussion for the Monitor Subcommittee to provide input to SFO on the noise reports, and I remember you had passed around a best practice example. I recognize the portal is available, which is great, but I'm sure that there will be some formal input that would be useful, including supplemental metrics that truly represent the next-gen impact of noise. So my question is, what do you think about that still being in scope? And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
We have no more hands raised for this item, Chair.
Very good. So I'm going to open it up now. Go ahead,
if I just can follow up on that, Chair Ortiz, the subcommittee was not looking at changing any of the permanent noise monitors, nor were we charged with placement of those permanent noise monitors. So we do not have any authority over that. That is something that was not in our subcommittee directives. So we were just looking at the temporary monitors and how we could best deploy those to get information and give feedback to the communities of noise impacts. So we were charged with just the temporaries, and we feel that we could be able to deploy those in areas that may not have access to the permanents. So that's it for my comments.
Great, thank you. Okay, so having said that, you were looking for an approval. If anybody would like to make a motion, then we can comment on the motion and take a vote.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Hi, I couldn't find how to raise my hand again.
I see you.
Thank you. So, Elizabeth Lewis, I'm really, really thrilled that Terry and Al are working on this. It just is, I think, so important. And the portable noise monitors, as I understand it, are as valid and robust as the permanent noise monitors. They're going to give us good data and everything. So I'm glad that our our subcommittee is involved, and then bringing in more local resident input. So that being said, if I could make the first motion to approve the recommendation as Terry has outlined, I'd be very honored to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion on the table and a second. Do we have any comments? Having none, okay, so here's the question. In the interest of time, do we have to have a roll call vote for all of them? I'm not sure of how the rules apply. So, Ms. Wolin, do you have a sense of what we're allowed to do? Because I would rather have just a voice vote on this one.
If anyone else has an opinion, I'd welcome it, but I see at least a quorum worth of members right now. So I think if you call it by voice vote and ask everyone to raise their hand, I see Mike O'Neill thumbing up. Yeah.
Okay, so let's call
maybe
it.
I'll read them out loud. How about that? I'll read out loud who I see, and we'll.
The way we'll know if there's any. Just let me know if you object or abstain, and that will tell me how we voted. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. So we have no opposed, no abstain, so it's a unanimous vote. And pardon me for breaking the rules if I did.
I think it's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you again, Terry and Al, for all your hard work. Appreciate that. With that, we will move on to item number 10, which is our ground-based subcommittee report from Subcommittee Chair Ann Schneider.
And I'm looking for my notes here. Sorry, 1 second. You're faster than me.
If you'd like, I can go to the next item and get back to you.
Please do.
Very good. So what I'm going to move on to is item number 11, which is our HMMH contract amendment. So to explain, we have our consultant who we have an ongoing contract with. Normally, we would put this out for an RFP for the regular renewal. Because of the staff turnover and COVID, we decided to just do a 1-year extension, and then we will go to the RFP process next year. There is a memo in the packet explaining the decision and the procedure, and I'm open for any questions. And having none, then we can open that to members of the public who may have a question on the HMMH contract. Ms. Montes, do we have any members of the public?
Thank you, Chair. I do not see any hands raised for this item, and we did not get any written comments for this item.
Very good. And then this was just an information item. We do not require a vote. And I will then move on to, or back to item number 10. Vice Mayor, are you prepared? And you must be muted.
I just unmuted, but now I have to go back to my notes.
Okay.
It's a shame of having everything on the computer.
I do have another item that we can go to.
Here we go. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Ground-Based Noise Subcommittee hasn't met during shelter in place, but hopefully we'll be meeting before the August meeting. What we did discuss in January was for the consultants to conduct a spectral analysis study, which is analyzing the impact of vegetation on sound waves under various flight scenarios. And the data collected on this would give us a better understanding of how we might be able to mitigate some ground-based noise. So hopefully we're going to be meeting and talking about this. And I thank Linda and Angela for all their help with that. The minutes should be ready for approval at our meeting. I'm going to throw two other things in. When I was at the symposium, which Linda and I are going to talk about, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport has done tree studies for noise abatement, and someone contacted me later from Oakland that they are also doing a vegetation study for noise on Oakland. So Justin, I don't think you and I've had a chance to touch base on that, but it looks like other places are looking at vegetation and noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Schneider. That was a great report, and I look forward to our next committee meeting. With that, I will move on to actually, let me open it to public comment on that item, or to any members. Do you have any questions for Ms. Schneider? Having none, then we will open it to public comment. Ms. Montes, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak?
Thank you, Chair. If you wish to speak on item 10, please raise your hand. For those joining by phone, please press star 9. I do not see any hands raised for this item. Thank you.
So having no comments, I thank you again, Vice Mayor Schneider, and we will move on to item number 12, which will be Councilmember Ann Wegner, or our Vice Chair for the roundtable. And this is an update for contact with other roundtables. I think we've heard part of it already.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. Yes, you have heard some of it, and it actually, I think, plays to some of the bigger discussion that I'll probably just briefly cover tonight, which is that one of the things that seems to be evolving as we have pursued the idea of working together with our adjacent roundtables is that it may in fact start into, rather than being a more formal organization with meetings, et cetera, and attendance requirements, that what we were looking at potentially have happen, and you saw it in the situation that I just described, that in the discussion with the chair, Mary Lynn Bernald of SCSC this week, it was clear that they were requesting a collaborative effort on the response to the FAA relative to the supersonic. And so I think that was a great example of how we can work together on specific issues. And interestingly enough, that was one that emerged during this time period. And since we didn't have any other meetings scheduled during this COVID period until recently, one of the more positive developments from my perspective, and I think the Chair Ortiz's as well, has been, and I think Kathleen has been involved, the number of conversations that we've had with the FAA, and I want to thank all of the members of that team, Raquel, Sky, and Fabi, that we raised this issue with the FAA to ascertain their interest in working with any kind of a regional body. They certainly indicated a willingness to do that, but had a request of us that I think is probably a good initial step for us, and that would be to, rather than having it be set up as a committee that's a standing committee with a series of meetings, that we deal with it on an issue-specific basis. Meaning, if there's a flight route, and I'm just going to pick this one out of the sky, Pirate, and any of the routes that we might look at, Bodega, Night Hush, whatever it would be, that where it is logical for any other of the roundtable bodies that are impacted by that same route, that be the opportunity for us to pull together the teams to collaborate. And I think that may help us get through the logjam of not really having the support, the administrative support or financial support, frankly, to pull together a separate body at this point. So I think we're starting to see the beginning of that, and I would anticipate that as we move into other discussions with the FAA relative to some of the route commentary that we will have, that there will be opportunities that will present themselves for us to do that and to try and move forward in that fashion. So in my mind, that's a very positive potential approach, because I think it may help all of us, and it clearly is intended to address the issue of addressing our issues on a regional basis. And that is my report.
Thank you, and appreciate all your hard work on it and your contacts. I think the thing we've learned is that any changes that we get are going to require cooperation or coordination with other bodies. So thank you, Vice Chair.
Sure.
I'll open it up to any member questions or comments. Having none, Ms. Montes, do we have any members of the public that want to comment?
Thank you, Chair. I do see one hand raised. Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you, Anne, for the update on coordination with the SC Roundtable. I'm a little concerned about, and I'm glad that all of these discussions have been happening, you know, sort of on the side with FAA, but I'm concerned about this, what I would call a piecemeal approach to addressing common concerns. You know, the FAA created the Metroplex, but it's still treating everything airport by airport, route by route. To me, that translates into not really looking at things at a system level, but rather just looking at things at the margin. But if there's a single issue that could bring everybody together right now to discuss, if you're gonna have to divide it up, then I would look at nighttime noise, for example, a high priority for all the communities that have been waiting for mitigation from 5 years ago. Arrivals versus departure, the characteristics of noise are so different. And so if you're gonna come together on something, instead of being responsive to things that come at us, whether it's a procedure or something, I think the beginning discussion has to be the issue of alternative metrics, because our issues are just not being represented. We've been talking about this, and this is the written comment that I submitted with documents from 5 years ago. And so we have a framework for discussion with the FAA's report to Congress for Section 188. But I do think that the public is not being served, and certainly the people that are affected, by looking at this piecemeal, reactive, and not, you know, looking at the Metroplex and looking at things on a more system-wide basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Montes, do we have any other public comment?
We have no more public comments for this item.
Very good. With that, then, I thank again the Vice Chair for her hard work, and appreciate the efforts, and hopefully, just one comment, the vision of the cooperation was more geographic, I would say, than anything else. So where there was areas where we had common interests that we could form subcommittees to work together is kind of what we were thinking. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Councilmember Schneider, or Vice Mayor Schneider, and our Ms. Wolin to give us their update on their experience in the Aviation Noise and Emission Symposium 2020.
Very good, and thank you. So it seems a very long time ago, but back in the beginning of March, Linda and I attended, as representing our roundtable, the UC Davis Aviation Noise and Emission Symposium in San Diego. It was 2.5 days for Linda. I actually went down a little bit earlier and took an FAA environmental training class at that event. But the topics covered such a huge amount of material, from community engagement, the impacts of aviation noise on sleep and hypertension and heart attacks, the FAA Reauthorization Act, emerging technologies in aviation that goes from drones that could be flying everywhere to electric aircraft, the impact of aviation on climate change and airport operations. So what Lynn and I thought, there was just so much, and we didn't think you all would read it if we took the time to write up. I have 30 pages of notes, so it would be a lot of reading, that we would share our top 3. So if you're okay with that, Linda, please go ahead.
Thank you, and thanks to the Roundtable for the opportunity to attend the conference. It was really quite interesting. I wrote down some notes for my takeaways, but given the time, I'm going to even summarize my summaries. Something that really was impactful for me was the opportunity to meet and interact with our counterpart roundtables from around the country. And I think there's really a lot that we can do to work with them. There's, first of all, we're not alone. A lot of other communities are dealing with the impacts of aviation noise that we do. And some of them use other models for interacting with their community or the airport or with the FAA, and there's also some lessons to be learned there. And I think we can team up with them. And I know that this is a priority for the Legislative Committee Chair, Janet Borgens, that we start working with them on legislative activity in Washington once things settle down in the COVID world. And then on a substantive note, there were quite a few discussions. Well, there were lots of discussions about studies that are ongoing out in the ether. But a few times it came up that there is a difference between noise impact, the way we think of it, and noise annoyance, which we all experience, with noise annoyance being a combination of acoustic and non-acoustic factors. And I think that's that preliminary data seems to indicate that when individuals have more information and maybe some predictability about the noise, even as annoying as the noise itself continues to be, the actual noise annoyance may decrease. So I think that's interesting and something we may want to keep our eyes out for in the future. And that's my report.
Thank you, Linda. And I agree with everything that Linda learned. It was a really good opportunity to meet with other people working on the issues. I want to give a big clap to all of the Palo Altans. And I'm sorry, I don't have her name in front of me, our regular SFO attendee from San Francisco. They helped me learn how to navigate this because they've been there before. It was an incredible learning experience. So my takeaways from the FAA and environmental review process, what I learned was one of the few things that give communities a little bit more say in what kind of noise effects or vibrations may affect is whether or not a neighborhood is on the National Registry of Historic Places. So that has become an action item for the city of Millbrae. It's like also being an environmental justice community. It gives you a few more criteria to hold any changes to a facility or a flight path. It gives you a little bit more, it gives you more tools in the tool chest for that. So that's a big takeaway from me. Another takeaway was a number of airport sustainability managers talking about how their airports and their airlines are greening themselves. So hats off to San Francisco, who is one of the airports for using sustainable fuels. The other airports were jealous that San Francisco's got a good share of the fuel. I hope we are maximizing that fuel consumption because it can reduce, and correct me, I think it's 30 to 40% of the emissions from an aircraft by going to a sustainable fuel. So it's a big deal. The other thing that LAX seems to be really great at electrifying their ground operations, which then has both a carbon impact and a noise impact. And to me, one of the downsides of the pandemic and the complete loss of revenue to SFO is their ability to qualify for being able to move some equipment to an electric version of that. And Mr. Sotero, if there's anything Millbrae can do to help you, write grants with you, I am here for you in any activity that can help electrify operations, which then brings me to the electrification of general aviation and commercial aviation. It looks like electrification is happening or can happen to general because the airplanes are so much smaller and lighter, but the bigger airplanes use a lot of battery power on takeoff, and that limits them. But I just sent staff a report. They had amazing young engineers, some from California colleges, some other colleges, talking about all the research going on in electrification of aircraft. And this one young woman, I think it's her flight, they're just making their first largest electric airplane flight happening this week. So hopefully that'll go out in the next packet. It's not going to help us with noise this year or next year, but if we keep working on the electrification of these things, I have visions of maybe electrification just for takeoff and then they do something else up in the air. But I kudos to all the engineers working on that. The last thing that I'm going to say, a good number of the roundtables around the country and around the world include in their mission the ability to discuss emissions. I'm going to have you go back to thinking of the scientists from FAA who came out to us last fall and talked about the discovery that there are by far more micro particulates coming out of jets than they had thought. And those particulates, really tiny, go way deep into human and animal lungs. So when a roundtable can talk about emissions, it gives them an additional item in the toolkit to affect change. So I talked to Linda about it, and we think that it would require a charter. But what I would like to ask Chair Ortiz, as we bring the working committee back, would this be an item that we could talk about at the working committee level? And you're on mute, Mr. Ortiz.
I was saying some really smart things. I absolutely would support that for the working group, and we can take it up when we start setting those agendas. But yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your report, and thank you both of you for going down there and bringing back some valuable information. The members have any questions of Ms. Wallen or Vice Mayor Schneider?
Can I also give a shout out to Justin, because once I went to the drone workshop, it sounded like we would have drones everywhere. And I think he patted me on the back and said, "Ann, don't worry, they've been talking about this for years." But we have to keep our eyes on drones because they could be flying all over us all the time. Even if they're electric, they still make noise.
Yeah. Carol, did you have a comment? But you need to unmute yourself. Carol, unmute. I think you're still muted, Carol. There you go. Oh,
Sorry.
there you go. Now you are.
Okay. So was the last speaker Ann? Because I agree with her that I think the drones are a huge problem, and I think the FAA needs to address it in a bigger way, because they think that they're supposed to stay out of the way, and they don't. And I'm very concerned about it. So sign me up for that subcommittee when we get to it. And the way that they're supposed to proliferate is like they're everywhere. But I also was consoled at a conference I went to in January, saying that it'll be 2023 before we see them ubiquitously.
Chair, if I could add to that, the other thing that they talked about were either drone or manned flying taxis, who could take you from Palo Alto to Sfo. Yay, you get to skip 101. And then he said, oh, it's very affordable. It's only a couple $100. Huh. Given that we're in this current period of social inequality, future aviation may point to more inequalities.
Very good. Okay, well, once again, thank you. Any other members have any questions or comments for our members? No. So having none, are there any members of the public who have any comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. We do have some hands raised for this item. Jennifer, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
I don't see the...
Oh, you are unmuted. We can hear you.
Hi, I didn't, can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to mention that the aviation, the symposium that was just reported on next year for 2021 will be virtual. It'll be on, we're not going to have people meeting, but it's going to be online. So there's going to be a lot of programs, and I encourage everyone to plan on attending, because it's hard to get to some of the locations. It's usually been in Palm Springs, and this year in San Diego. Regarding drones, I will send a report. I may have sent some of you a report. There was a report from NASA making a recommendation of how communities can work on this issue of drones and all of the other flying vehicles. Again, we're sort of, communities are the last to know, the last to participate. And recommendations are made for people to work together, to collaborate, and everything sounds really good. But there's no objective data, there's no real analysis. And so, you know, it's up to you, the leaders and people who are put in these positions to advocate for citizen concerns. And so I will send that, I will put that on my follow-up list as to what is encouraged, and maybe you'll get some ideas on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Montes, we have other additional members of the public?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Mark, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Hi, thank you. And I want to thank you, Anne, for suggesting that emissions should be a subject of focus by the Roundtable. I think the last several years has been some amazing papers delivered at those symposiums by, Boston University, University of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I think the main one I caught my eye this year was from the professor of epidemiology at University of Washington related to studies at CTAC, similar to the ones that have been done years before, a year ago in Boston, related to the ultrafine sub 2.5 particles and their effect, particularly on cities under arrival streams where they're not dissipating, and these are extremely dangerous, as you have said. I really, as the public, would appreciate this as perhaps the emissions as a subject of a work program in the Roundtable schedule. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Montes, do we have any other members of the public?
Thank you, Chair. We have one more hand raised. Rob, please accept this request to unmute your microphone and begin speaking.
Thank you. I also attended the A&E Symposium, and one of the things that I found valuable was the opportunity to meet with members of the FAA, who we don't always have a chance to meet with here. And more importantly, I find that at that symposium, there's actually a little more willingness to engage in dialogue with members of the public. And that's something that, as a member of the public, is hard to come by with the FAA, in my experience. I would like to say a few words about drones. There were hundreds of pages of statutory law defined for drones in the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018. My understanding is that the regulation of drones isn't as simple as it is with aircraft, because states have some more, there are jurisdictional questions involving the states. And I think it might be useful for the Legislative Committee and the Roundtable to weigh in on some of those questions, asserting privileges that are impossible to assert in federal airspace for drones, which are by their nature more local. I would also add that at a tech fair in Mountain View, where I live, last year I met with NASA Ames personnel who are developing traffic management for the routing of drones, and their proposal is to use rails that can be 3 levels high for routing drones, which is great, I suppose, if the drones are being routed over 101, but I wouldn't want 3 levels of rails being routed over my house. Since that's being done so locally, it makes sense to me that the Santa Clara Roundtable and the Santa Cruz Roundtable and the Sfo Roundtable may want to weigh in on that one as well. So I applaud the suggestion to bring some focus to that topic. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Montes, do we have anybody else?
Chair, we have no more hands raised for this item. Thank you.
Very good. Well, once again, then I want to thank Vice Mayor Schneider and Ms. Wolin for their report and for representing us down in San Diego. With that, I'm going to bring it to item number 14. Any member communications or announcements? We have any hands raised? So having none, I will move to item number 15, which is our adjournment. I want to thank everybody for being here. I think this worked out pretty well as far as the technology, so I appreciate your patience, and I think we're back on track. And hopefully we get to meet in person soon, but if not, we will do this again. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.